Well, hey there, how you doing? Dave Fennoy here, another Wednesday, and here we are, another Ask Dave Fennoy Anything. I hope you are doing fine. So much is going on these days. And before we jump into all of that, because it's going to be voiceover, politics, the loss of one of the greatest voices ever, and whatever is on your mind. But I want to remind you now, between now and the end of October, if you are interested in voiceover coaching packages with me, 5, 10, or 20, you can use coupon code FALL20 and you'll get yourself 20% off. 20% off now through the end of October. All right. Wow. You know, there are people in our lives that we lose them and they just meant something you didn't know they meant. Well, I knew what James Earl Jones meant to me. I had the opportunity to meet him. It was several years ago, 2014, when I finally looked and saw exactly when it was. 2014 Sovus Awards. It was one of the early Sovus Awards, and he was being honored. And I was the booth announcer, or one of the booth announcers for that show. He had to come backstage and sit in a chair right across from me, just a few feet away. And I was amazed. Oh, it's James Earl Jones. This is one of my heroes. This is somebody that I have imitated. And I spoke to him and said, well, you know, you're one of my heroes. You're one of my inspirations. And I told him about one of my very first jobs in this business, where I was working for the Disney Channel, and they had me doing an imitation of Darth Vader. And they put me in the booth, they gave me the script, and then they handed me a coffee jar, and said, hold it right under your lip. I did, and it gave that echoey sound that Darth Vader had. I told him about that story. But right now, let me tell you a few things about James Earl Jones and his life. James Earl Jones, one of the best that ever did it and got away with it. And as I'm looking here, perhaps I didn't hit the button here, but let's allow comments. Oh, there you are. Since it's just me and we have some time, I'm going to give us all a little chance to say hello. Wendy Baines, yes, I can hear. I can't hear any audio. Wow. Oh, there was no audio on the James Earl Jones piece. It was just pictures of him. Wendy Baines, I had the privilege of meeting him once in the San Jose airport. And you know what? I bet he was quite the gentleman there. L.C. Brodos, I didn't hear him say moment of silence. I'm not sure what you're saying there, but Seth Steele says this in a British accent and a slightly high-pitched voice at the same time. Not so fast, cowboys. You don't dare know the secrets of the legendary silver glass. All right, that's a quote, if that is a quote, that I'm not familiar with. Didn't know you had a YouTube show. So awesome. Artie, you're late. You're late to the game here. This has been going on for about a couple of years. Began broadcasting on YouTube, and then it would go to the YouTube channel. Now it broadcasts on the YouTube channel, LinkedIn. Apparently, Twitter is having some problems. And, of course, Facebook here. All right. I just got back from Bogota, Colombia. I was down there for a voiceover convention called VIVA VOZ, and they have been having them since I think about 2017, 2018. 5 years ago, I was a guest for them, and they asked me to come back, and it is a Spanish-speaking convention. My Spanish is poor, to say the best, but they honored me by having me come down. They had translators. I was able to do a workshop or two workshops, and give a speech on voice acting for video games. And I cannot tell you how well I was received. It was quite the event. And Raul Aldana, who lives here in Los Angeles, he and I flew down together. Now, Raul is somebody that if you're interested in dubbing, you ought to know. Raul is from Mexico. He's been a guest on this show a number of months ago. And he was the Spanish voice of Mickey Mouse. And now he still does voiceover work, but he also casts lots of dubbing. Some of the biggest movies in the world he's casting. So we'll have him back on. Oh, there's one of my classes down there in Bogota in a beautiful building built right into the mountain. And what we can see is a huge window looking out over the entire valley that is Bogota, Colombia. But you just get the view of the mountain that becomes the back wall. Marcio Catalano, very well-known voiceover actor in the Spanish-speaking market, and we became buds. And, when you think Colombia, when you think South America, you think a certain kind of dance, a certain kind of movement, and yeah, here it is. Okay, everybody does line dancing. How about that? Let's go back to some of these comments. Let's see, Lalius1. Say this. Oh, that's the one that I didn't quite understand what you were trying to tell me, Lalius. And Elias Christini, hey, sorry if you don't know, your message is rolled through late. I guess that there was no audio on purpose. They weren't being rude. Oh, no. There was no audio on that video that I played of pictures of James Earl Jones and some of his greatest roles, just so I could speak over it and talk about what he meant to me. It's just amazing. Lyle McCarty, voice works. Awesome. Time spent at Chez Fennoy a couple of weeks ago. Thank you. That's right, Lyle. I remember you there. Great to meet you in person, Dave. It was well worth the drive from San Diego. And the flight for Tina from San Francisco. That's right. A couple of voiceover pals came to join us at Backyard Jazz. It was quite the hit. If you weren't there, you should have been there. We had a little bit of a slow start, so we were having a problem with the mixer. Thankfully, my buddy Wayne Lindsay was around, who's one of the world's great pianists, and also he's a great mixer, and he fixed the mix, and then Biscuits and Gravy just sounded great, and everybody had a fabulous time. Let's see. LC. Yes, the great James Earl Jones passed away, as did the Japanese anime actress who voiced Sailor Jupiter, also passed away a day ago. And then Frankie Beverly today. You know, I heard that. I almost forgot to mention it. As a matter of fact, I did forget to mention it. For those of you who know, Maze featuring Frankie Beverly, one of the greatest R&B bands ever. And they were a band, you know, a lot of R&B bands have crossed over, the Earth, Wind and Fires, the Kool and the Gangs. For some reason, Maze featuring Frankie Beverly never really crossed over in the same way. But for those of us with chocolatey skin, one of the greatest bands ever. After the 80s, they didn't have any hits, but they sold out show after show after show after show. And in the last 10 years, Frankie Beverly's voice just wasn't what it had been. He couldn't really sing. He couldn't really hit those high notes, but he didn't have to, because we all sang along. Thank you, Frankie Beverly. You are going to be missed. Let's see, Elias Cristalli, from a broader perspective, how do you get into character? From a broader perspective, how do you get to character? Put your spirit into your voice. You know what? We weren't going there with teaching, but I'm gonna answer that a little bit. When I'm teaching, like I did just recently in Bogota last week, I like to look at the big picture first, then the smaller picture, and then the smallest picture. So if we're talking about video games, what world is the game in? What's the tone of the game? What kind of movie would it be? Would it be sword and sorcery? Would it be post-apocalyptic? Would it be romantic comedy? Find out the tone of the game. That's going to help you, first of all. Now we want to find out about the character. Who is that character? What's their worldview? And what's their history, if we get that? Sometimes you don't get a history because the characters are kind of stereotypical. But once you have an idea of this character's worldview, now let's look at each and every scene. What is happening in each and every scene? What is happening that the character's responding to? What is happening that the character's thinking about? What are they thinking about? What are they feeling? Or what's their attitude? What are they doing? Because more often than not, we're in our booth, we're thinking paper, microphone, or screen and microphone, but we need to think beyond that. What is this character doing? Are they walking down the street? Are they sitting at their desk writing something? Or are they having an argument with someone? Are they in the midst of battle? Are they hiding? What are they doing? And who is it that they're talking to? And what's that relationship? Even if they're talking to themselves. Because we've all been in that mirror sometimes going, oh man, I can't believe I did that. What is wrong with you? Or, man, I am the stuff. I'm so good. Yeah. That's just a real short understanding of how you have to get into character. But keep in mind, when I'm teaching this, often it's mini coaching sessions, or if it's a class, it's at least 3 hours, and I prefer 2-day classes. And once you have the technique, you got to practice the technique. You got to practice and practice and practice. Okay, let's get another one here. This is for Comic Dub. You will voice a bat who has a British accent and a slightly high-pitched voice at the same time. Hey, yeah. Do you want to listen to some tunes? Well, too bad. Okay. It sounds like a bit of a job offer or something. Well, thank you. Get back in touch with me. We'll talk about it. Seth Steele. And this is a voice acting skit. Are you a bug with Australian accent? Oh, my. Bug with... No, we're not going to go into that. Australian accents are one of my worst. How about... who watched the debate last night? Anybody? Anybody watched the debate? I have to confess, I had a job that started at 3 and didn't end until about 7. So I missed it as it was happening. Some friends of mine had invited Monique and I over. I had to tell her, honey, you go. This was a last-minute job. And she called just as I was finishing. Said, "Are you coming? Are you coming?" I said, it's almost over, and everyone wants you to come. So I went. And they were kind enough to hold the last bit until I got there. And when we came home, I watched the whole thing. So what do you think? Well, you can tell who I'm for. Kamala Harris 2024, for the people. Absolutely. You know, I thought she was perfection in this debate. Donald Trump was Donald Trump. It was a bevy of lies and exaggerations. I'm not sure that's going to make a difference because it has seemed for the years that he has been in politics that the people who support him don't care about his lies. There's something about him, his personality, his bombast, his terribleness that they like. So I don't think this is over, despite the fact that clearly she was someone who had something to say, that was talking about the position she took, whereas he was talking about things like, well, Haitian immigrants are eating pets in Ohio. Of course, that's a proven lie. He also said when asked about January 6th, well, I didn't have anything to do with that. He's the one that started, that invited people to come to Washington. We're going to have a rally. And if you want to keep your country, you're going to have to fight like hell. We're going down to the Capitol. I'm going to join you. If he didn't have anything to do with it, nobody had anything to do with it. It was the prosecutor against the perpetrator. Who watched? What did you think? Also, after the fact, something I thought was interesting, Taylor Swift has come out and endorsed Kamala Harris. Do you think that's going to make a difference? Do you think it's important? Often celebrity endorsements don't mean much. I can't say I'm a huge fan of Taylor. I don't dislike her at all. I'm not someone who's been listening to her music. But there's something about her I like. Even though I'm, not a big fan, I'm probably, a little too much gray hair. But I think this is an important endorsement. Let's see. We're going to take some questions here. I'm wondering if the only one who thought the VP almost cussed but had to really exercise some restraint. Well, unfortunately, she has to be very careful about expressing too much anger or how that anger might be expressed. She'll get the angry black woman title if she doesn't. But yes, and she played him like a fiddle, like she was a virtuoso. She would set him up and he would just fall right into the trap and start going nuts. I thought it was very interesting, some of the things he would not answer. Would you like to see Ukraine win the war? Oh, I'd like to see the war stopped. If I was president, this war would have never happened. And so many Russian soldiers have died. Why was he concerned about the Russian soldiers? And, of course, to my way of thinking, he can't say, yes, he'd like to see Ukraine win. He owes too much to Putin, who he thinks is his friend. Putin is playing him like a violin. So many things that he just would not answer. What else did he not answer? Oh, he's trying to back away from his stance on abortion because he's discovered it's too toxic. The women of America do not want to go back. Oh, yeah, we talked about his denial of any responsibility for January 6th. When he talks about inflation, he was asked by Harris, you talk about economic policies, but you never address inflation at a 40-year high. What's your plan to fix it? Well, let's talk about inflation a little bit. We don't have the typical inflation. Prices are going up because it's trying to match people's salaries. People's salaries haven't gone up that much. They actually have gone up a bit under Biden and Harris. But corporations are making record profits and have been raising prices and raising prices and raising prices and buying their stocks back to make more money, to pay off shareholders and give CEOs huge multi-million-dollar benefits. It's not inflation. It's greed. He doesn't want to talk about that. He's running from that. Let's see. DF raising again. I've had to do the long pause before, trying to find a better one, more civil term than this mofo here. So I definitely recognized her restraint. Well, you know, there's some things you can say in the privacy of your own home or when you're hanging with your boys that you don't need to say on this program or in so-called polite company or at work. But if you don't say it, sometimes you just go ahead and think it. LC, absolutely watched. It's insulting to put her who is more than qualified versus a xenophobic, sexist, treasonous nut. How do people justify a sex offender to make laws about women's bodies? Very good question. Very good question. We are living, as the Chinese curse says, in interesting times. And for the sake of all of us, because those who are going to vote for Trump, I don't think they either feel like, haha, I'm as evil, and he dislikes the same people I dislike, and I want to see those people punished. But I think there's some people out there that are just ignorant, aren't really following along. They like the bluster. They have drunk the Kool-Aid. Their lives aren't going to get any better under Trump. He doesn't care about them just like he doesn't care about us. I like the fact that Kamala and Tim are talking about we Americans, all of us. I like when she said, when I was a prosecutor, I didn't ask the victims if they were Republican or Democrat. I asked if they were hurting. Oh, here's my friend Bernard. He always has something to say. How do you turn black? Oh, yes. How do you turn black all of a sudden? Did she answer Commissioner Gordon's phone, push back the head of that bust of Shakespeare, jump on a pole, and as she slid down the pole to the Batcave, she went from East Indian to black? Oh, I think it's amazing. And for some reason, I think Donald Trump came up in a time when he could just lie and not get fact-checked. Or he's one of those people that will just keep talking over you so you can't get a word in to question whether he's lying or not. but his lies are so easily provable. Somehow, his followers don't care. Clearly, he doesn't care. He doesn't like to be fact checked in real time. But we're in a world now where that can happen. We'll see. We'll see. Okay, enough politics. Let's talk about something else. How's your voiceover career going? What have you booked lately? What have you auditioned for that you just felt like, hey, I've got this, and then nothing? Let's talk about voiceover. What equipment do you have? What do you think is holding you back from having the career you want to have? Or maybe you might want to come on and say, hey, you know what? I'm having the career I want to have. Well, if that's the case, what happened? What did you do that turned it around, that moved you forward? Let's see. Just because I see it's you, Lal, I'm coming up. This might be, nope, not on voiceover yet. But as we are on ADFA, ABC News is reporting that Homeland Security designates next January 6th as a national special security event. You know what? I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. This was a political coup, or an attempt at a political coup. He wanted to stop the counting of the ballots. If he could have, he would have. He tried. Not a fan of Mike Pence, but I'm going to say Mike Pence was a hero that day, because Mike Pence, A, got out of there with everybody else, and B, did not leave the building. He got out of the chambers. But when he got in that car, he said, no, you ain't taking me nowhere. And when the riot was over, everybody went back in, and Mike Pence counted those ballots. And, of course, Biden became president. And you may have problems with his age. I kind of do, too. But I know what he's made of. I know about the people that he has surrounded himself with. He still would have been a good president. And he has been one of the most consequential presidents in a positive way that we've had. Just the stimulus bill that got through, the infrastructure bill, that got through, that is creating work, providing jobs, improving the infrastructure for the nation. Look at some of the other countries. You go to Singapore, you go to China, and some of them are far ahead of us on taking care of their infrastructure. I think it's partially because our billionaires are so selfish. They'll spend money on themselves, on going into space, on, hey, let's start something on Mars. Rather than concentrate on Mars and going to space for a few minutes in their private little spaceships, what about right here on the Earth? You remember how hot it was here in Southern California last week? Fortunately, I was in Bogota, where it was 65 to 75 degrees. But talking to friends of mine in Southern California, it was hitting over 100 degrees, over 110 degrees. It's insane. And you still have people that say global warming is not a thing. The hottest summers ever, the hottest summer on record, is this summer. Hotter than last year when that was the hottest on record. Hotter than the year before when that was the hottest year on record. The storms we're having, the fires we're having, these heat waves. This is an emergency. This needs to get handled. All right, let's go back to the phones. Oh, it's not phones. It's Bernard, I live in Georgia, and Trump has been charged with the felonious act of illegally trying to steal the election. We have him on tape. Oh, yes, we all remember that. I just need 11,700 votes. Just find them. Wendy Baines, you, Dave, helped me make the decision to go for it. This Friday, I will start my training with voice coaches. I'm very excited about their program and what they offer their new voice artists. Well, good for you, Wendy. Let's give her a hand. Woohoo! Fantastic. And let's see. Let's see, Lolly. Oh, he's trying to get me to do something here right now. You know, Lolly is. That's not how I work. You know, I do this for a living. And generally, someone approaches my agent. Sometimes they approach me, and we set a contract, and we do that, and I get paid. So I don't. Let's get in touch with me after the fact, and we can work something out. Do I do things for free from time to time? Yes. It depends on what the project is, what it's for. But this isn't the platform for doing that. Once again, let's get back to voiceover now. Unless, let's see, what do you have to say? Aisha Zephyr. I've been having a good time learning with Chris Okawa in game mode. He focuses a lot on acting and offers a variety of resources. You know, I am not aware of Chris Okawa, but I like the fact that you said he focuses a lot on acting, because that's what I focus on. And I'm going to suggest to everybody that character work is going to help you in everything you do. Voiceover 101, well, you don't want to sound like you're reading, so you don't want to be ready. You want to be talking to somebody. 2, you got to know who you are, who you're talking to, what the relationship is there, what you're talking about, and how you feel about what you're saying. All this is acting. Now, what made, say, James Earl Jones so wonderful? It wasn't just that magnificent instrument that he had. It was also, he was a great actor. I can't tell you how many times someone has approached me to take voiceover classes, and they have a big, deep, wonderful voice. And they're speaking in that wonderful voice, and you can tell that they are aware of their wonderful voice, that people have told them that they have a wonderful voice, and even they come to me and say, you know, I would like to learn voiceover. People tell me I have a wonderful voice. The issue, the thing that gets in their way more often than not, is they're listening to their wonderful voice, trying to find the pretty part of their voice to speak in all the time. And when you're there, you're concentrating on your voice. You're not concentrating on being that character. So no matter what kind of voice you have, I'm going to extrapolate that to say you've learned to do an accent. If you're thinking too much about making sure you're doing the accent right, the acting is suffering. If you're thinking too much about, oh, I have to, these words, I have to say them like this, or here comes that word that I'm not sure how to pronounce. If those thoughts are in your head, you're out of character. You're no longer that voice that is going to connect with people here and here. All right. Bernard again, what do you think of programs like those offered by Bill DeWeese and Joe Zaja? I do not know Joe Zaja. I know Bill DeWeese. He's a friend of mine. I like him. I think he does good stuff. Now, Bill is much more attuned to narration and commercial. That is the world he lives in, and we actually have done some workshops together a few years ago, and one of the ways we kind of described who we are in the voiceover world. Bill makes his money on what I call low-profile work. I make my money in high-profile work, meaning Bill does very well. I don't want you to shortchange him as a successful voice actor. But he does a lot of narration that's never going to see the light of day on television or on radio, whereas I do things that typically show up on television and radio, so thus high profile. Is one better than the other? No. They both pay. Money's green, and it spins. But that's the difference. That's the difference. So I'm fine with Bill DeWeese. Now, one of the other differences between he and I is my career was based through agents, being a union member, and so forth. His career is based on finding his own work, using the pay-to-play sites, and being non-union. Now, I like my path better. I'm not going to fault somebody for having a successful career that's not union and pay-to-play. But I think there's some benefits that you'll get from being a union member, and whether that's making cars or being a plumber or whatever. There's somebody and somebodies that are on your side. As a union member with SAG and AFTRA, I have someone to bargain for me what I'm going to get paid. I have someone to collect for me if the client does not pay. I have pension put away for my retirement that I don't have to worry about. It's taken care of. I have health care at a much more reasonable price than most people have. There are a lot of benefits to being a union member. And I'm going to say this, there was a golden time in the United States from a bit after World War II to about 1980 where unions were at their strongest. And a single man, when I say single, I mean one person. A man could take care of his family with a regular job. I'm talking about going to a factory every day, building cars or something else. He could buy a house. His wife could stay home. He could raise his kids and send them to college and have a car, maybe two. And I'm not saying that to say women should stay at home. Women should do whatever they want to and whatever they are able to do. But now we're living in a world where a husband and wife, sometimes both of them have to work two jobs, and they're questionable about whether they can afford to have children or ever be able to buy a house because the prices keep going up. Not because of, we're spending too much money on the poor. It's because the greed of the rich cannot be satisfied. We need a government that holds the line for everybody. If there's a minimum wage, there should be a maximum wage. Or at least people who make that much money should be taxed at a commensurate rate. During that golden age, and when I say golden age, not everything was perfect. Believe me, as a black man, not everything was perfect. Still isn't, but much better. But in that golden age, what CEOs made compared to the average working person was in the neighborhood of maybe 100 to 400 times as much. Now it's 1,000 times as much. It was illegal for companies to buy stock back. That's been thrown out the window. The laws are being written by the wealthy to keep the poor poor and to take more from the middle class. The government is being funded by the middle class. The wealthy, the very wealthy, are not paying their fair share. And Donald Trump and his cohorts are only going to do the same thing. Money to the billionaires. They're still talking that trickle down. And really, that trickle down is they're pissing on your heads. John Moody, Dave. I thought you were smart enough to know that the so-called heat wave is just another government hoax like the pandemic. The only reason people think it's hot is because weather forecasters are telling them so. I'd continue, but I'm outside on my phone. And my phone is melting. Oh, sarcasm. I love it. Nice, John. Nice. Very nice. Yes. Let's see. Who else have we got? Janelle Designs. I'm happy with my career. I work my fanny off. Oh boy, it's because women should have fannies. Oh, okay, sorry. I worked my fanny off for the first 3 to 4 years. Now I love my work as it comes in. If it doesn't come in, I go chasing it. Who says deep, smoky voice isn't needed? I get plenty of work from those kinds of characters. Back to Harris. I love this act. And next time I see you, you better wake up. You better. Well, I missed the last part of that. You better wake up to me and say hello. Naughty, naughty, naughty. But wonderful. And you have an amazing voice. That deep, smoky voice. It's just amazing. And I'm glad that you are finding success because you deserve it. All right, here we go. Angel Hole. Pam Grier, Foxy Brown, or Bernadette Stannis, the daughter on Good Times. Who is more beautiful? Definitely easy, Bernadette. You know what? Man, that whole thing, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. If you had 10 beautiful women standing there and 10 guys, we'd be picking different ones. So, beautiful woman's a beautiful woman is a beautiful woman. All right. Lyle McCarty again. Dave, what are your thoughts on taking improv or stand-up comedy classes? You know, I think it's a great idea. One of the things it does, it kind of gets some of the cobwebs out of your head so that the synapses are working a little faster. You begin to connect with the things that are already up there that maybe you're not using. None of us are ever going to be like a Robin Williams, where the connection in the synapses from his head to his mouth, just out they came. But we all could benefit from learning the improv idea of say yes and jump in. Say yes and jump in. All too often we're kind of, a little timid about it, and okay, maybe jump in and say yes. Improv kind of frees you up, kind of sets you up for the challenge of voiceover to look beyond just what you see on the paper, to come up with other ideas about what is this really saying and who am I as the person who's really saying it. So yes, I recommend improv. And let's see, Angel again. Dave, were you alive when Good Times aired in 1974? Oh, Angel, bless your heart. Yes, I was definitely alive, and I remember that. I remember when I was a little kid, you didn't see black people on TV on a regular basis. The world then is a different world than it is now. I remember a time when a black person was going to be on a television show. My parents were calling their friend, hey, you know what? So-and-so is going to be on such and such a show because it was so rare. You had Nat King Cole had a show for about that long and they took him off the air. And several other black entertainers were given a little bit of an opportunity, but the backlash from the white community, especially in the South, was so strong that advertisers were afraid I'm going to lose customers if I'm supporting this show that is supporting this black talent. So it's real tough on us. It took a lot of marching and knocking on doors and pointing fingers and sometimes creating our own thing. You're seeing a lot of us creating our own things now. And I don't mean just black people, Latin people, Asian people. Creating their markets, and we have so many platforms now that there are room for that. But the shows you're talking about, Good Times, those were very early shows. Those were groundbreaking shows in terms of black entertainment on general market platforms. Yeah, I was there, but I remember when they weren't there, when I was very young. Let's see. DF Raisin again. I'm about halfway through with finishing my first demo reel with Cliff Zellman. Oh, you're going to do the car thing, aren't you? Hoping that sometime in the mid-fall that I'll have my site built and active, God willing. You know, I'm glad to see that a lot of you are working with some very good people. Cliff Zellman is one of those. And sometimes I'll talk to people and I can tell they're a little skeptical about spending the money they need to spend to learn this craft. And I just want to suggest that it's kind of like going to trade school or college. You are learning to do something that's going to pay you in the long run. You're going to get there much faster if you take the time and spend the money to learn the tricks of the trade, to learn the things without making the mistakes that you might make on your own. When you don't know, you don't know. So you need to work with somebody that does know. Now, yes, there's some unbonafide people out there. There's some people who they did a little work, and then work wasn't coming in, so I'm going to hang a shingle and teach. Not everybody who has done some voiceover work is qualified to teach. I've been doing this since 1990 in LA, and I was doing it before in San Francisco. Some of y'all weren't even here in 1990. You were a wink and a wiggle. A wink in your daddy's eye and a wiggle in your mama's thigh. And that's one of those old sayings that you might get. All right, there she is again. Bill DeWeese said he wished he has my sizzle. My hassizzle. What is that saying? What a compliment. He wished he has my... Okay. I'll figure it out later, or you can send me a note and tell me what it means. Now spread the word. Taylor Swift, but VO to this star. Been waiting for her endorsement. Woohoo! Oh, you left there. I need to give more time to these. Sometimes I'm reading them too slow. Okay, back to the business at heart. There you go. Let's see. LC again. Angel Hall, that's not this form. Is for us, sir, not comparing looks of actresses. You know, it's okay. I'm okay with a lot of things that are a little off topic, especially today. I've talked about politics. I've talked about being in Bogota. Mostly we're talking about voiceover. So every now and then we get a little bit off topic. But I got to agree with her. There's just so many beautiful women. There's so many good-looking guys. I'm not the one that, let's line up 10 women and judge them. Anyway. Oh, it's me. I know Janet. I know that's you. Not Single Designs. I'm on the wrong page. Whatever. Artie. Improv classes were some of the best fun I've ever had in college. Highly recommend, even for those not looking to get into acting. You know what? I think that's a great comment, Artie, because you don't have to... I'll just say this. Improv classes can help you in other places other than being a voice actor or being an actor. It helps you free up your mind to have other ideas, to connect with things that are already in your head, with things that you've just seen on television or saw out on the street, and allows those things to gel together and create. And if we're going to be creative people, we need that. We need that. So yeah, I'm all for it. And she's back. It's yes and. That's right. Always yes and. But definitely yes. Shell. In my 4th year and just really making strides, juggling a regular 9-to-5 while doing theater and VO in the evenings. But things are starting to move forward. Getting ready to step in the booth after this for auditions. Excellent. And Shell, in your fourth year, that's not that long. That's not that long. When I got started, I was starting in radio at the same time. I didn't realize that the voiceover was going to finally kick in and be the thing. At some point along the way there, I decided, when I'm making as much money as I am in radio, I'm going to move over into voiceover. And of course, my plans, God laughed, and other things happened. But how long does it take, say, to be a doctor? How long does it take to be a lawyer? How long does it take to be an apprentice in the trades? You've got to understand this isn't a career that, I decided to do it today. Tomorrow, I've got a job. There's steps you have to take. You need to get the training, and nowadays you need to get the equipment. If you don't have a home studio, you're not really going to be successful in this business, or it's going to limit your success. There are things you have to learn that I didn't have to learn when I got in the business. When I got in, I went to my agents to audition. I went to somebody else's studio to work. All I needed was a phone, then a pager, and then a cell phone. But the world has changed. I remember when we had home studios, when you first began, if you had an audition that, say, had to be in New York, you would have to send a reel-to-reel with FedEx. That'd be about $20, $25. Then it got to be cassettes. Still costly. Then it got to be DATs, about the same price. And then suddenly we had MP3s. Didn't cost you a thing. The world has changed a lot, and God bless you that you're living in this world. In so many ways, you have it much easier, but also in so many ways, you have to have your own studio. The unions over the last years have not been as strong. Hopefully, they will be stronger. We have seen the pay of voice actors go down in the last 10 to 15 years. We'd like to see it go up. There's more work than ever before, but we also have AI looming out there, and it's going to take some jobs. I'm going to suggest it's going to take some of the low-end jobs, some of the jobs that don't require human-to-human contact. My fear is that people will get used to AI voices and not prefer them. I was in Bogota. Raul and I were talking about audio description, which are the voices that you hear if you're hard of seeing, giving a description of what's going on. And they have rejected AI out of hand. They want to hear a voice that is telling them the story. God bless them. They tried to pawn off cheap AI voices on the blind and hard of seeing community, and they just said no. I hope the rest of the world does the same thing. Wendy Baines again. Okay, do you know a place to take improv classes? Who would you recommend? Scott Parkin, if you're in LA. That would be my first choice. Scott Parkin, if you're in LA. Now, I don't know if he teaches online. I teach online around the world. But Scott is just a master with improv. So I would start there. Scott Parkin. Now, Wendy, I would suggest wherever it is you live, just kind of Google improv classes. Also, instead of, well, I'm glad you asked me, but don't just ask me. Ask other of your acting friends, do they know about improv classes and who gives good improv classes? Because I know Scott, I know there are a few other people, but I don't know all the great improv folks. So start asking questions. Have people do things like, hey, make a list of the 5 best improv teachers for me. Once you've done that, say with 10 or 20 people, and you discover there are a few people on that list that keep rising to the top. They may not be in the same order, but if they're 1, 2, those would be the people that you want to check on. All right. There she is again. Some white people are idiots. Okay, I'm done. Not all, but some for sure. Pretty driggin' sad. Well, unfortunately, some people, whatever their stripe, are idiots. But I feel you. I understand what you're saying. Mr. John Moody, once again, great point on acting being the focus. One of my biggest challenges, dubbing foreign language, was connecting the emotions to the words that actually synced with the actor on screen. The director was mainly concerned with syncing with the movement of the mouth, and I'd ask for another take if the emotion didn't fit. Raul and I had a few, and once again, Raul Aldana, he is a master of dubbing. And you're going to find that the best dubbers in the world tend to be Latin speakers because they've been doing it for so long. They have created the technology. And Raul particularly views dubbing as an art. And he's dubbing some of the biggest movies from Hollywood into Spanish. And he's very careful about the actors that he hires. They have to be good actors. And it's not about just matching lip sync. It's about matching the attitude of the actor that you're replacing. People, after I gave my presentation on voice acting for video games, somebody asked me, they didn't know it was dubbing, but they were asking me about, well, I'm doing this work where the character has already done the part, and I'm trying to match his emotion. I can't create the emotion. I have to match the emotion. And I said, well, that's dubbing. And he goes, oh, that's dubbing. When you're dubbing, you are both artist and you are a mechanic. You are a technician. Because you have to do both things. You have to hopefully match that lip flap. Although I've noticed now that shows they're shooting internationally often cut away from the person who's talking for a good deal of whatever speech they're giving and concentrate on the person that they're talking to and their reaction, because they know this is going to be dubbed. Start watching closely and see how dubbing and the fact that the world has turned international in terms of entertainment. We've got shows coming from the Far East. We're coming from South America, coming from Europe, coming from South Africa. Entertainment is a worldwide business now. That hit shows, they may start here, but they're going to travel around the world. Let's see. Medi, oh my God, I love your work. Wishing you all the best day. Well, thank you very much. Shell again, getting ready to complete my corporate demo with Angie. Totally worth it. Bernard, once again, when you record most of your video games work, do you do it from your home studio or must you go to the studio of the producer? I know that Andrea Romano likes to direct the talent while she's in the studio with them. I was really hoping to meet her at VO Atlanta in 2024. The world has changed quite a bit. Once we had the pandemic, you went from a time when you were always going into the studio to do video game work, but work shut down and was going to stay shut down unless they allowed people to do work from home. So there was a big rush to check out people's studios, help people get studios. PCB, a company out here, would send equipment to your house. They sent it to my house. I don't need this equipment, but okay, I'll take it. For their sessions. And the big problem being, if you're doing a video game and you get 50, 100 different characters and they're all recording in their own houses and each studio is a little different, this one has a little more compression, this one the EQ is different, it becomes very difficult to mix all those different sounding studios and make them feel like they're one cohesive unit. But they've gotten better at it. So yes, we do work from home. The job I did yesterday that forced me not to be able to watch from the beginning of the debate, I did right here. And I do a lot of work right here. As a matter of fact, I do most of the work right here. Now, studios are trying to get us back in the studios. And I have no problem with that. There's nothing like going in where I don't have to worry about, okay, how loud is this? How loud is that? And making sure, okay, there's no pop or whatever. That when some things are taken out of your hands and you really can concentrate more on the acting. Love that. But I also love the fact that I don't have to always get stuck in traffic someplace on my way to or from that gig. So 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other. I'm hoping that we're going to be in a world where sometimes you work at home, sometimes you're going to go out. We're seeming to get a good balance of that right now. So it's not an either or. And one of the pluses, you can live anywhere now. You don't have to be in LA, New York, Chicago anymore to do this business. And in terms of video games, there are more video game companies now than ever before. The universities have game developer programs. And guess what those people want to do when they get out of school? They want to develop games, and they're either going to go to work for one of the big companies, one of the medium-sized companies, or start their own small company and create games. And if they're doing storytelling in those games, they're going to need voices. And that might be a good place to start. A good place to start. Some of those new companies that are just getting going. So often people start with somebody and they stay with that somebody because they've developed a crew. Think of the number of movies you've seen that have similar casts. I'll just say Best in Show. How many movies did that crew of people make? And they've all become successful, or more successful, I'll say. Well, listen, we've run over time. I didn't know what we were going to do exactly today. Well, actually, I did. I was going to talk about James Earl Jones. I was going to talk about the debate a little bit. Kamala. And I'm just going to say this. Vote. If you're not registered to vote, register to vote. If you have friends who aren't registered, make sure they're registered to vote. Encourage them. Get active. We're all who are voting for Kamala very excited about it. But we need to let the world know that we're excited about it, and that they should join us, and that this other person is an existential threat to the United States and the world. He is not stable. He calls himself a stable genius. He is the exact opposite of that. So please, please, please vote Kamala. Encourage your friends to. And I will see you next week. In the meantime and in between time, what do I want you to do? I want you to book something.